was 23 and had just moved to Flagstaff, Arizona, about 4 months before this happened. Still new to the area, still getting used to the roads. My older sister lived outside of Page, small town, northeastern part of the state, maybe 2 hours from me. She just had a baby, and I'd spent the whole weekend at her place helping out. By Sunday evening, I was exhausted, but I needed to get back because I had work Monday morning. I left around 9:30 at night. The drive back was mostly Route 89, long, straight, pitch dark and boring. I'd done it twice before, both times during the day. At night, it was a completely different experience. No street lights, no other cars, just my headlights cutting through this flat, open desert, and the occasional road sign to remind me civilization still existed somewhere. About 40 minutes in, my GPS, which I'd set before leaving, told me to turn onto a connecting road I didn't recognize. Now, I should mention that my GPS had been acting weird the entire drive, rerouting randomly, freezing up, then coming back like nothing happened. I'd already ignored 2 of its suggestions because they looked wrong to me. But this one looked legitimate on the screen. It showed a clean line cutting northeast, which was the direction I needed to go. I turned. The road was paved. That was the first thing. It felt normal. 2 lanes, yellow center line, slight curve going east. I figured I'd catch a highway connector within a few minutes, and that would be that. But the road didn't connect to anything. It just kept going. And as it went, it got narrower. The shoulder disappeared first. Then the center line faded, like whoever painted it just stopped caring partway through. The pavement started showing cracks, then patches, then long sections where the asphalt just crumbled at the edges into gravel and dirt. I slowed down. The GPS had completely frozen again. I had 1 bar of service, and it wasn't enough to reload the map. I tried to think logically. I'd only been on this road for maybe 5 or 6 minutes, so turning around wasn't a huge deal. I just needed somewhere wide enough to do it. I pulled to the side and stopped. Got out to look around because my headlights weren't showing me much beyond about 30 feet ahead. It was so quiet out there, it felt unnatural. No wind, no animals, nothing. Just this faint smell of dry dust and something else I couldn't place. Something almost chemical. The road behind me curved away into darkness. Ahead of me, the pavement gave out completely into a flat stretch of cracked dirt that led to nothing I could identify. There were no structures, no fences, just open desert turning into something I couldn't see past. I started walking back to my car, and then I saw the light. It was far back down the road, in the direction I'd come from, a single headlight, barely visible but moving, slow. And I remember thinking it was a motorcycle, or maybe a car with 1 headlight burned out. Either way, someone else had turned onto this road. I got back in, pulled a tight 3-point turn. The shoulder was just barely wide enough, and started driving back. The headlight was still there, still moving toward me, but slowly. I figured we'd pass each other and that'd be fine. Except as I got closer, I realized it wasn't a headlight. It was a flashlight. Someone was walking down the middle of the road holding a flashlight and pointing it directly at me. I slowed because there was nowhere else to go. They were walking right in my lane. At about 50 feet, they stopped. Just stood there, flashlight beam aimed straight at my windshield, blinding me. I couldn't see anything behind that light. I honked once. Nothing. They didn't move. I honked again and flashed my brights. They took one step to the side of the road. Just enough. Like they were letting me through, but barely. I drove past, keeping my eyes forward, not looking at them directly. In my rearview mirror, I watched the flashlight turn around, and they started following me with it. I don't know what exactly my brain was doing right then. I told myself it was probably just some local, some person who lived out there that I couldn't see, who was confused about why a car was driving down a road that clearly went nowhere. I told myself that, but I drove faster. I made it back to Route 89 in about 6 minutes, got on heading south, and didn't slow down until I was back in Flagstaff with streetlights around me. I looked up that road afterward, found nothing about it, no name, no designation on any map I could access. Satellite view just showed it cutting into the desert and stopping. Dead end, no structures, no reason for anyone to be out there at night. Who was walking down that road? I still don't know. And honestly, the thing that bothers me most isn't the flashlight, it's the smell. That chemical smell that was already in the air when I stopped, before I ever saw the light. Whatever was out there in that desert had been there for a while. This happened about 8 months ago. I'm posting it now because I ran into someone at a cookout last week who had a nearly identical experience on the same highway, and it shook me enough to finally write this out. I was driving back to Columbus from a college friend's wedding in Memphis. Solo trip. I'd done long drives alone before, no big deal. Left Memphis around 11 p.m. because I'd stayed for the reception, and I-40 East was the straightest shot home. The first few hours were normal, boring even. I had a podcast going and cruise control set, just grinding through the miles. Tennessee turned into Kentucky. Kentucky started turning into Ohio. Somewhere past Lexington, around 2 in the morning, I noticed a car behind me. Now, cars behind you on a highway are not unusual, but this one caught my attention because it had appeared out of nowhere. 1 second, my mirrors were clear. The next, there were headlights about a quarter mile back. No exits nearby, no on-ramps that I remembered passing. They were just there. I didn't think much of it. Not yet. But over the next 20 minutes, the car never changed its distance. I sped up a little. They sped up. I eased off. They eased off. Always that same quarter mile. Always exactly. I changed lanes. They changed lanes. That's when I started paying real attention. I tried to get a look at them in my mirror, but all I could see were headlights. Couldn't tell the make, the color, nothing. I thought about calling someone just to have a voice on the line, but it was 2 in the morning and I didn't want to alarm anyone over what might genuinely have been nothing. Then they turned their high beams on, full blast right into my mirrors. I had to tilt the rear view up. They held it for about 30 seconds, then cut back to normal, then did it again, over and over, like a slow, deliberate pulse. At first, I told myself maybe their lights were just malfunctioning. Electrical issues do that sometimes, but there was too much control in it, too consistent. This wasn't a short. About 10 miles later, I saw a sign for a rest area. I took it. The exit curved down into a lower lot, one of those rest areas that sits below highway level, with concrete walls on 2 sides and a single entrance-exit ramp. There were 4 or 5 semi-trucks parked at the far end and 1 minivan near the building. Enough people around that I felt okay. I parked under a light close to the building and sat in my car watching the entrance ramp. No headlights followed me down. I exhaled, sat there for a few minutes. Figured I'd use the bathroom and grab something from the vending machine, shake off the adrenaline, and get back on the road. I locked my car, went inside, used the bathroom, spent maybe 3 minutes in there, came back out. There was a car now parked directly next to mine, and I don't mean one spot over. I mean immediately next to mine, passenger side almost touching my driver's side. And this rest area had 30-40 open spaces. It was a dark blue or dark green sedan. Hard to tell under the sodium lights. Engine off, windows up. Nobody visible inside. I stood near the building entrance for a while, just watching it. Nothing happened. No movement inside the car. No one came out of the bathrooms behind me. Eventually, I walked to my car. Got in, locked the doors. I sat there for a second, trying to decide if I was overreacting, and then I put the key in the ignition and turned it. Nothing. Not even a click. No dashboard lights, no sound. Completely dead. My stomach dropped in a way I can't fully describe. It wasn't panic yet, it was something worse. That specific feeling of understanding that something is very wrong and that you are not in control of it. I called 911 immediately. The dispatcher was calm. I told her my location, told her my car wouldn't start, told her I thought someone had been following me on the highway and that there was a car parked right next to mine in an otherwise empty lot. She asked me what kind of car was next to me, and I described it. She paused. Not a normal pause. And then asked me to confirm my exact location again. Something in her voice shifted. She told me officers were 12 minutes out, and to stay in my car with the doors locked and to keep her on the line. About 4 minutes into waiting, the sedan's reverse lights came on. It backed out slowly, pulled around, and parked directly behind my car, bumper to bumper, so close I couldn't have opened my trunk. Then the engine cut off again. I told the dispatcher. Her response was fast. "Keep talking to me, don't hang up." The driver's door opened. A man got out. Tall, dark jacket, dark pants. He walked to my car and stood at the driver's window. I was looking straight forward, not at him, but I could see him in my peripheral vision. He just stood there, not touching the glass, not saying anything, just there. Then he walked around the front of my car, then down the passenger side, then around the back, right past his own car, then back around to my side. He did this 3 times, slow, deliberate loops, like he was looking for something, or like he wanted me to know he was doing it. Then he got back into his sedan and drove away. The officer arrived 6 minutes later. He took my statement, looked at my car, and popped the hood. The mechanic they called confirmed it the next morning. A wire near the battery had been cleanly cut. Not damaged, cut, clean edge. The officer told me to file a formal report with the state police. He was professional, calm. But at one point, when I mentioned the lights on the highway and the way the car followed me, he stopped writing for a second and just looked at me. He said, "You did the right thing calling when you did." That was it. He didn't explain further. I've thought about that look a lot. What it meant. What he already knew that I didn't. The case, if there even was one, went nowhere. I never got a follow-up call, never heard anything from the state police. And the guy at the cookout last week, same highway, different night, same rest stop. His car died too. He didn't call the police, he waited it out alone. He said a man circled his car for almost 15 minutes before leaving. He has no idea why his car started again just fine when the man drove off. Neither do I. I've been driving long haul for 11 years. Out of Billings, Montana. I do the Central Corridor mostly. Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, back up through the Dakotas. I've driven through every kind of weather, every kind of bad road, every kind of weird situation you can run into out there at night. I say that because I want you to understand that I'm not someone who spooks easily on the road. This one spooked me. It was a Tuesday night in late October, heading south on US 87 through Wyoming. Routine route. My CB radio was on channel 19 like always, just background. It's usually dead out there, too remote for much chatter. But I liked having it on because occasionally you'd catch weather from another driver or hear about a pileup ahead. Around 12:30 in the morning, the CB crackled, just static at first, long bursts of it, the kind that sounds like something is trying to connect. I adjusted the squelch and it settled down a little, but then a voice came through. Male voice, flat. Like he was reading off something. He was saying a color and a description. I turned the volume up. Red cab, black stripe on the doors, white trailer, decal on the lower left corner of the trailer, yellow looks like a starburst or a sun. I went cold. That was my rig. That was a description of my exact rig. The yellow decal on the trailer corner was a company logo, small. Not obvious unless you were right up close or had been following for a while. This guy knew about it. He finished the description and said one more thing. Heading south on 87. Then nothing. Static. Then silence. I grabbed my handset and keyed it. Who's on this channel? Who just said that? Nothing came back. I tried again. Silence. I sat with the radio hot for about 3 minutes, just listening and got nothing. I looked in every mirror I had, no vehicles visible in any direction. Not behind me, not approaching from ahead, not on any crossing road. Whoever sent that transmission was either very far away or had already gone dark. I called my dispatcher on my cell. The call went through but broke up almost immediately and dropped. No service. Just that 1-bar flicker before going to zero. I kept driving because stopping on an empty stretch of 87 with no phone signal and no idea who was on that radio felt like the wrong move. About 40 minutes later, I saw the lights of a truck stop ahead. It wasn't a major one. Small operation, a few pumps, a little building with a light on. I decided to pull over. Tank wasn't empty, but it was an excuse to stop somewhere visible, under lights, around people. I pulled into the lot, killed the engine, sat there. The attendant inside the building was visible through the window. Young guy, maybe early 20s, on his phone. Nobody else in the lot. One other truck was parked to the side, engine off. Dark, no sign of anyone in it. I got out and pumped about $30 of fuel, even though I didn't really need it. The whole time I kept watching the road. 87 was visible from the lot, and nothing passed by in either direction while I was out there. I went inside to pay cash and asked the attendant, just casually, if he'd seen any trucks come through in the last hour going south. He said he hadn't seen anything since maybe 10 o'clock. I paid and walked back out. As I was getting back into my cab, I caught movement on the road. A pair of headlights. No, wait. Not headlights. Running lights. The orange ones on the side of a truck. And they were moving slowly, going south on 87. No headlights. Just those running lights in the dark. I watched until they disappeared over a low hill. I radioed again. Any southbound traffic on 87, come in. Nothing. I sat in that lot for another 10 minutes before getting back on the road. About 4 miles past the truck stop, the road curved right and then opened into a long, straight stretch. My headlights showed the road empty all the way to the horizon. And then they showed something else. There was a pickup truck stopped at an angle, not fully across the road, but enough. And a man was standing in front of it, on my side. He had his arms up, waving slowly, the posture of someone asking for help. But the pickup looked fine. No visible damage, no flat tire I could see. And there was nothing out here, no animal crossing, no debris that would have made someone stop in the middle of the road for a reason. I took my foot off the gas, but didn't brake yet. I checked my mirrors. Coming up fast behind me, no headlights, just those running lights, was a truck. Closing the distance quickly, everything clicked at once. I didn't stop, I didn't slow down. I moved left into the oncoming lane to get around the pickup and the man in the road. He had to step back fast, and I can't tell you if he actually got out of the way in time or if the corner of my trailer caught anything. I just felt a small jolt, and I kept going. I was doing about 65 when I cleared him. The truck behind me, the one with no headlights, hit its brakes hard. I could see the glow of them in my driver's side mirror. It stopped right next to the pickup. I kept going for about 20 miles before I felt like I could breathe again. I reported it to the Wyoming Highway Patrol when I had signal, gave them the location, the description of the pickup, everything I had on the truck with no headlights. They took my statement. 3 days later, a detective called me. He asked me to go over the details again, specifically the radio transmission. What was said, word for word, what time, what channel. I asked him if they'd found anything. He said they were looking into it. That was 8 months ago. I haven't heard anything since. I still run that corridor. I still keep the CB on channel 19. But now, when it crackles, I reach for the handset a little slower than I used to.